What NFC East tight end is creeping back up draft boards? Which Rams receiver is the correct one to draft this season? And how much will Kenyon Drake take away from Josh Jacobs in 2021? Plus, FFPC live events host Greg Sidoris drops in for an important announcement for FFPC players thinking about coming to Planet Hollywood. Five-time league champion Elliot La Fleur talks targets and fades in August drafts and pros versus Joe's drafter, and four-time FFPC main event league winner and owner of FFMastermind.com, Michael Nazarek, will pop by for a conversation about roster construction, his thoughts on the Eagles' backfield, and much more. We've got a jam-packed, great show for you. Ferrell Elliott is here. I'm Eric Balkman. Stick around. Your high-stakes fantasy football hour starts now.
Broadcast live and heard around the world, you are now listening to the most entertaining hour of radio on the planet. Welcome to the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour, presented by MyFFPC.com, with your hosts Eric Balkman and Ferrell Elliott. The High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour is your home for analysis from the best players in the world. And now, because no one else was available, here's Eric Balkman and Ferrell Elliott.
Thank you, Rob, and thank you, Quiet Hollers. Remember to check out their music at quiethollers.com. Greetings and salutations, all you Balkaholics and Ferrelliacs. Welcome to the latest episode of the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour, presented by MyFFPC.com. I am, of course, your slightly above average host, Eric Balkman. My co-host is the definitive commissioner of fantasy football, Ferrell Elliott. Coming up on tonight's show, we're going to talk with Greg Sidoris about an important announcement for anybody who wants to come out to Vegas but has not made the commitment yet. You're going to want to hear this. That's coming up in just 1 minute here. Five-time FPC champ Elliot La Fleur discusses A.J. Dillon, Brandon Cooks, and other polarizing players in the Footballguys Players Championship draft this year. And then Michael Nazarek is going to tell us the latest about his site, FFMastermind.com, and how he hopes to add to his collection of FFPC main event titles this season, and much, much more. Shout out to the chat room right now. We got a lively group in there. Feel free to post any questions you might have in there. If you want to connect with us on Twitter, you can do so at HSFF Hour. I am at Eric Balkman. And, of course, you can always check out the Kentucky Fantasy Football State Championship that Ferrell runs at KFFSC.com. Facebook.com/HSFF Hour is where you can drop us a line there. And if you want to chime in and talk with us, it's 347-426-3682. That's 347-GAME-OVA. HighStakesFantasyFootball@gmail.com. It's also the email inbox if you want to send us a message there. If you have any questions for us, send them in now. We'll try to get to all the chat room questions, all the tweets, all the emails in the fantasy feedback segment later on in the show. Thanks to our audio engineer and my best friend, Bryce, and our producer and mutual friend, Rob. Without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, let's bring him in right now. He has been a licensed casino host for nearly 30 years. He's the owner of Casino Connection USA, and he's the FFPC live events host. It's Greg Sidoris. Greg, welcome back to the show, man. Always good to talk to you.
Hi, guys. How are you? Nice to hear your voice. Hello, Ferrell. Nice to hear your voice as well.
Yeah, and I should bring Ferrell in, too. Ferrell is here on the line, Greg, that we were able to have this conversation with you. Pretty important stuff. If anybody missed the announcement in the FFPC email today, if you missed the announcement over the last couple of months, Greg has arranged a fantastic FFPC group rate at Planet Hollywood right now. But that group rate, as we found out, Greg, is not going to last forever. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
That's correct, Eric. On August 24th, which is, it looks like 9 days from now, the contract rates that we have for all FFPC guests, it's a $79 weekday rate. On the weekends, it's $179. And if you compare that to the weekend rate right now, for example, the Planet Hollywood on the Friday night, it's $206. And on Saturday night, it's $458. So if we don't get that room booked by the 24th, I can't do a whole lot about saving us money. So the urgency for the phone call was to make sure that anybody that's sitting on the fence, give me a call at 216-299-5390 or Greg at CasinoConnectionUSA.com. Send me an email, or you can go to myffpc.com and click on the link that's down in the Las Vegas section, and you can book your own room yourself, and you can obtain those rates that we're talking about. So once again, August 24th is the cutoff for our room block, and then our hands are kind of tied with the numbers. So we wanted to make sure that you guys were able to take advantage of that, those room rates, and we really look forward to seeing you guys out there. Also, we do have our Thursday night party, which is the Dallas versus Tampa Bay. That's the opening kickoff night. That's hosted by the FFPC. Doors is typically open around 4:20. It's a 5:20 kickoff. And then we also have our Sunday viewing party over at Blondie's, which is in the Miracle Mile, which is connected to Planet Hollywood. And we have it's a very nice package there. It's $125 for a ticket. What comes along with that $125 is you do get a $75 food and beverage credit. You can come and go as you please. You'll have a seat from 9:30 till the end of the second game. So we have a couple of excellent events for you guys planned. We have a fantastic turnout. It's the largest turnout that we've had in the years that I've been doing this with the FFPC. So we're very excited that people have their energy. I know everybody was cooped up from last year, so we'll see if we can let out some steam this year.
Yeah, and I've been to Blondie's for the viewing party on Sunday. It is a blast for sure. I encourage everybody to take advantage of that. The Thursday night viewing party, I mean, my goodness, several hundred people in there all watching the same game at once. Everything, fantasy on their minds. It's a tremendous experience there. But you don't want to experience that by paying more for these rooms coming up after the 24th. So make sure that you are booking right now. If you go to the main event page at myffpc.com, there's a link right at the bottom of all the leagues. Click on that. You're going to get the group rate. If you have any questions for Greg, 216-299-5390, CasinoConnectionUSA@gmail.com is where to reach him there. So, Greg, this is, we never like to put the screws on too bad, but this is a serious warning for anybody who is on the fence. Now is your chance to make sure that you can save a lot of money if you are booking here before August 24th.
It's kind of uncharacteristic because over the past few years, the room rates have been very comparable to what our contract rate was. So with everything that went on last year, the hotel casinos in Vegas have kind of pushed the room rates up to keep it real. We'll just say that. So they're doing what they need to do to keep everybody safe and sound by actually raising the room rates. But once again, we're ready for everybody, and we're looking for you guys to be coming out soon. So it's right around the corner. I think we're right around 3 weeks away from the kickoff. So I really appreciate you guys letting me come on to make sure we get the message out to everybody regarding the rooms.
Greg, it is our pleasure. Can't wait to see you. We'll hook up in probably a little bit less than a month here. Like I said, about 3 weeks, man. Thanks for popping on the show. You're always welcome here.
We appreciate it, and thank you guys very much. We'll see you in a couple of weeks.
Greg Sidoris, ladies and gentlemen, you want to make sure you book 216-299-5390, CasinoConnectionUSA@gmail.com. Ferrell, if you are my favorite person in the world, Greg might be my second favorite.
Greg Sidoris is the man that he is the straw that stirs the drink in Las Vegas, Bucky. And he is, with me on the phone, he is preaching to the choir because as soon as I saw his published rates, I ran to get them. And I think part of the influx of people coming to Las Vegas, I don't know if they all have a ticket to the game, but they want to say that they were there for the Ravens-Raiders. They want to say that they kicked off the season for live Monday Night Football. And it's across all hotels, not just the Planet Hollywood, but the Planet Hollywood were guaranteed to all be together and to have quick access to our ballroom and all the events that Greg has planned. It's a beautiful weekend that he's got together. I am so sorry that I will have to wait till Wednesday to get there and then go home on Saturday night. But you know what? I'm not there for a long time, but Greg Sidoris will make sure I have a good time. You
got that right, for sure. And Dizzle brings that up in the chat room tonight, too. Like, there's a ton of people coming out to Vegas because of that Ravens-Raiders game on Monday night, as you pointed out, Ferrell. And the demand for rooms has obviously gone up. So Greg got us this great deal at Planet Hollywood. He's been able to extend it until August 24th, but beyond that, it's going to be very, very difficult. And I'll equate this with my Bucks thing too. I ended up paying more money than I probably should have to go to the NBA Finals Game 4, but I never know when I'm going to experience this again. Well, I'll tell you, ladies and gentlemen, the professional football will only launch in Las Vegas one time. This is the only time it's ever going to happen. You have the chance to celebrate that with that Ravens-Raiders game on Monday Night Football. You could say you were in Vegas the time the NFL launched there. So it's going to be a lot of fun. Go to myffpc.com/main event, scroll down, book your room there, or reach out to Greg, CasinoConnectionUSA@gmail.com. That main event, by the way, if you are registered by midnight Pacific time on Monday, you're going to get your draft slot on Wednesday. Remember, live main events kick off next Friday, and they will run essentially every day until the Saturday before the start of the season. The deal we're giving right now, if you're already registered with the main event, you want to add another team, boom, $400 off that, whether you're drafting live or online. The Footballguys Players Championship, that's been picking up steam. $500,000 for first place, $100,000 for second. Congratulations to those people who participated in the weekday giveaway this week and won. Curtis Watson, Adam Krautwurst, and Don Terminello, actually two former guests of the show, ended up winning that week, or for this week, so they get a free Footballguys team. Stay tuned next week to see if we launch that again. I think there's a decent possibility that it'll happen. The best ball tournament that we launched this year is filling up fast. I believe we're almost 80% full on that $100,000 grand prize, only $125 to enter. And remember, we are in the countdown, only a couple more weeks until we close the door on slow Dynasty startup drafts. So if you want to get on that, do that now. And, of course, best ball drafts, including the $5 best ball, Cinco de best ball options, always going on at myffpc.com. Ferrell, I'm looking at KFFSC.com. Do my eyes deceive me? Are all the live leagues in Cincinnati and Louisville sold out?
Yes, sir, Balky. We've largely been sold out since the end of last week, but there were a few stragglers that came in, and when I woke up this morning, it was all gone. And we've got our numbers right. We've got a chair for everyone. We've got multiple chairs for you, Balky. And I just can't wait to reunite and see everyone. It's one of our biggest live attendance in the history, the 19-year history of the league. But we have plenty of online, both live online and slow that are going off right now. So it's Monday night. We'll get back at it after the weekend in Cincinnati, and I'd like all the listeners to come in and take a shot with us starting Monday night, August 16th.
KFFSC.com is where you want to get hooked up with that. Join myself, a ton of people in the chat room that are participating in the Kentucky Fantasy Football State Championship. It's going to be a lot of fun. It always is. Cannot wait to get some main event drafts going, and you can join as early as Monday night's draft in the Queen City Shutdown Division, going off at 9 o'clock Eastern Time. We are going off with our second guest right now, ladies and gentlemen. Let's bring in that second guest. They are a winner of 5 Footballguys Players Championship Leagues with plans to win many more of them in 2021. Please welcome onto the program Elliot La Fleur. Elliot, thanks for hopping on the podcast tonight.
Thank you guys for having me. It's great to hear you.
I literally just got a message from you as I was talking with Greg Sidoris here. But I want to know what you, not only when you're not winning all these Footballguys leagues and drafting all these Footballguys leagues, what you're doing for a living, and curiously, how did you get your bankroll going for the Footballguys Players Championship?
So I've mostly been playing online poker for a living for the last 10 years, but about 2 years ago, I switched mostly to playing stock, or just like the stock market. It turns out that a lot of the information that you learn to be a successful poker player translates very well to fantasy football and the stock market. So I've just been transitioning into that route over these last couple of years. So I've got plenty of time to do fantasy football and stocks.
Oh, Elliot, that's fantastic. Balky and I love experiencing the world through the cinema and the movies. What's your favorite all-time poker movie?
Rounders. Don't even have to think about it.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, mine too.
I would suspect. I would suspect.
I feel like that is a decent part of like how my early life went. Definitely a lot like Matt David.
All-time.
I played some backroom games
player.
and then went out to Vegas to turn the sand to gold.
There you go. Did you? Who was your favorite all-time poker player? Do you have any favorites, Elliot?
Yeah, Phil Ivey for sure. His biography growing up was probably one of the only people that I was like really interested in, and so like he ended up sneaking into casinos when he was 17. So I had to do the same thing. I look very young, even now when I'm 30. So I had to put on a huge disguise because I didn't have a fake ID or anything. Got all dressed up to the nines, and yeah, I've snuck into a few casinos back in my day. Mostly based because Phil Ivey did it.
Good for you.
Breaking news
right,
here.
So
we have unconvicted felon Elliot La Fleur on the program tonight.
Oh yeah, I'm pretty sure we're past the statute of limitations on that one.
Yeah, I think you're right. Yeah, and quite frankly, I don't even think that's a felony either. So, but it's good to talk to you.
It's fun.
Ferrell's going to talk to you. Speaking of the desert, Ferrell has a question for you about some players out in the desert.
I do. That's perfect because, you can identify talent in the desert and you can take your chances. You don't dance every dance when you're playing poker. But, Elliot, please tell me something. How do you figure which players you should dance with on the Arizona Cardinals? Naturally, Hopkins, you can draft him not thinking about it. Kyler Murray is one of the top quarterbacks off the board. When Rondell Moore was drafted by this team, and I live in Louisville, Kentucky. Rondell is from here, and he played at Purdue. And my shoulders kind of sank. That did not excite me, and I still haven't figured it out. And I want to see the preseason. But the forgotten man through all these players, the forgotten man is Christian Kirk. I look at the stats at the end of the year. I see he caught between 50 and 60 balls. I always say, wonder when he caught those. I must have been out for beverage or something. Can you put some clarity on any of these players with shining the brightest light on defining what we should expect from Christian Kirk?
Well, everyone else besides Christian Kirk is pretty much going where they probably should be drafted. So I don't see much value there other than like every once in a while DeAndre will slip because of some of the stuff that's happened this preseason with him potentially not wanting to play with the whole COVID thing. If they're mandated to take the vaccines and whatnot. So the value pick for me has been Christian Kirk, and it's because of the whole like mathematical age range and progression of wide receivers. Like very few wide receivers do well right off like in the first couple of years that they're on a team. So if you look at Christian Kirk, he's been developing, and like you usually want a little bit more pop from like a little bit more like show me something in the last couple of years. The problem with Christian Kirk though is he's been behind two Hall of Famers, DeAndre Hopkins and Larry Fitzgerald. So like of course you hasn't seen the pop because he's just been sitting there waiting his turn. Well, this year could easily end up being his turn. I am a little worried about AJ Green stepping up and just rendering Christian Kirk completely irrelevant this year, but there's a chance that he could get hurt, and I don't really like the rookie's chances of just becoming a superstar like Justin Jefferson. Like I just cannot see Rondell Moore having that type of season this year.
No.
So for a 15th round pick, I think the guy to go for is Christian Kirk because he fits all these different types of age range progressions, and he has the opportunity this year. Like he will most likely be the third wide receiver that starts the game, and when he if he takes any of his chances, he's just gonna like Kyle Murray's gonna end up being like going to him like whenever DeAndre's covered or triple covered for that matter. So like again in the late rounds, you're not worried about them not doing anything because most of those guys won't do anything. So you have to look what could break possibly right. And I just think that he is the cheapest guy that could have things break right, and he's he could end up having like a top 15 finish if he ends up getting that number 2 role in Arizona. I mean, none of it's certain, but I just like the opportunity there. Kyler Murray's a great quarterback. I mean, he almost threw for 4,000 yards in his rookie season. You have to love that. They're going to score touchdowns this year. Who's going to get the ball? So that's definitely my take on Christian Kirk.
That's a brilliant take.
Elliott, Zach Ertz right now in Footballguys drafts over the last 3 days. Shout out to FantasyMojo.com's Darren Armani, who compiles all this data for us. Zach Ertz over the last 3 days, 1402 for his ADP, tight end 24. How good of an investment is that for fantasy players right now, taking Ertz at that spot?
Dude, I absolutely love Zach Ertz. He's only had one bad year. And, again, if you go with the whole age progression, he's a 30-year-old tight end. Tight ends do well when they're 30 years old. So his age is no concern of mine. My only concern is Dallas Goedert. But he's injured right now, or, had a bad start to camp. He was getting ragged on for not being in shape. And then my other favorite part of Zach Ertz is there's a chance that he could still get traded. I mean, when I first started drafting him, I thought it was much more likely than it is now. So now I'm not hoping on it. But there's still value in having them running out 2 tight end sets. More than one time has a team been able to have 2 fantasy-relevant tight ends when they're their main pass catchers. And so far, none of the wide receivers in Philly camp are gaining the trust, I believe, of Jalen Hurts. I mean, from everything that I've read, it seems like Ertz and Hurts actually have a good connection with each other. And I just can't pass on a guy who's been a top 12 player every single year except for 1 year in his career and has no injury. I don't get why the Eagles hate him so much.
It was encouraging to watch the preseason game last night and see the quarterback Hurts contact with both these wide receivers. And if Ertz is healthy, he's going to be fine on the field. I like your assessment of that, and I'm surprised this player hasn't moved up as well. Balky knows the answer to this next question, but I'm going to ask it. It's probably one. Balky is famous for outsourcing intelligence, and he's great at it. And he's coming down to Kentucky to play, and he's going to need to know this answer. Now, for me, Aaron Jones is a player that I love so much as a fantasy player and love as an NFL player. If I were calling plays at Green Bay, Aaron Jones would be the definitive bell cow back. Would probably ask for time off, would probably wave himself off the field. But I don't believe that's the reality that we're facing in the NFL this year with A.J. Dillon there. Can you I probably always draft Aaron Jones a little high. Am I making a mistake by doing that?
If you're only making a mistake, it's because I'm too much of a fanboy of the Packers and Aaron Jones. I absolutely love Aaron Jones. One of my favorite things that he does is when he gets tackled behind the line of scrimmage and ends up with a 2-yard gain. Yeah, the average person doesn't realize how good that was, but I mean, he just got 5 yards that he shouldn't have gotten. And he does that all the time in all these small little windows. So I just can't I can never pass on Aaron Jones. He's way too much fun to watch. He plays on my favorite team. And I'm not worried about A.J. Dillon, especially when the Packers basically gave the blueprint for Aaron Jones's floor last year. All of the touchdown regression happened. Jamal Williams played. A.J. Dillon played. And yet he still put up the 5th most running back points last year. And that was everyone took everything. Everyone took all of his chances away, and he still finished and returned you value there. So, I just can't pass on a guy who had, his floor season just because you're worried about a second string running back coming in. But one thing that we've noticed in the NFL is that none of these guys can really carry, very few players can carry the 300 carry seasons. And I believe that it's just going to be a 65-35 split for most running backs on most teams. What's it, Najee Harris for Pittsburgh? He's probably one of the few guys that you can, realistically project to not have that sort of timeshare. I'm sure, Ezekiel Elliott. But, yeah, I mean, everyone's moving into that route. Even with Josh Jacobs, them bringing in Kenyon Drake. Josh Jacobs, they're not going to get away from Josh Jacobs. He was their, second-best player last year. So they're not going to get away from him just because they brought in Kenyon Drake, just like they're not going to get away from Aaron Jones just to give Dillon time. But neither of those guys can carry the ball and play the whole game. So Kenyon Drake and A.J. Dillon, they're going to get their timeshares. They're going to get their touches, but they're not going to destroy the fantasy value of their current players. If anything, they're going to help their team move the ball closer to the end zone so the real guys can get the touchdowns.
Talking with Elliot La Fleur, 5-time Footballguys Players Championship League winner. Elliot, in regards to Brandon Cooks, how much is the sort of unknown quarterback situation there? I mean, obviously, we don't know what's going on with Watson, but Tyrod Taylor, Davis Mills, how much is that dissuading you, if at all, from drafting Cooks in the 8th round?
It's not really dissuading me at all because the quarterback situation to me is completely known. I have been assuming Tyrod Taylor was going to be the starting quarterback ever since I drafted my first team. I mean, the sexual assault allegations against Watson are just way too much for them to have him slated to be their starting quarterback as they're planning out their preseason, and then he doesn't even want to play. So even if it ends up all working out for him, he's still not going to play for the Texans. They know that. Everyone's known that. So Tyrod Taylor's the guy. And if you remember when Tyrod Taylor was in Buffalo, he was able to hit Sammy Watkins quite often. They ended up making the playoffs with him. I feel like Sammy Watkins and Brandon Cooks have a very similar skill set, so I'm really not worried about Tyrod Taylor having Tyrod Taylor hit Cooks enough for Cooks to return that top 16 wide receiver season that he's done now for 4 different teams and 4 different quarterbacks.
You know, I look forward to meeting you and continuing these talks about football players because you are deep into understanding. So I'm going to ask a question here that I need some help with. I think I know the answer, but I'm the one who's outsourcing some intelligence here for this one. So one of my favorite guys that I've met playing fantasy football is known here in our league as the ultimate Browns fan. His name's John Anderson. He's in Cleveland. If the Browns are at home, he's there. Rain, snow, doesn't matter. And he sent me a text the other day speaking about the qualities of the Cleveland Browns tight ends. And I looked at that, and I said, which one? Because Hooper, he has the resume. And Harrison Bryant has the measurables, the triangle numbers that the NFL scouts love. And Njoku has the athletic skills. That's the guy I like. And now we have a quarterback throwing to him. All these guys, to me, are shackled by the burden of being, having Mayfield as their quarterback, because I think he's predisposed to not throw the ball to the tight ends because he's got to go over to the sidelines and explain to Beckham Jr. why he did. So it's a big mess there at this position. I say if you put all these 3 tight ends together, you have one very excellent tight end.
It doesn't help that their best wide receiver the last couple of years, Jarvis Landry, plays in the same spot of the field as those tight ends, and there's 3 of them.
Exactly.
So it's just like dink and dunk all day, but is that going to be enough?
Here in Kentucky, we don't have the tight end premium, but in Las Vegas we do, and I want to find a double-digit tight end that can deliver. Should I look somewhere other than Cleveland?
I don't mind grabbing a late-round flyer on Hooper, especially when I miss out on any one of the premium tight ends, or then my deep strategy of the Jonnu, Hunter Henry, Zach Ertz strategy that I've been doing a lot of drafts this year. If I miss out on a few of those guys, then I'll just take Hooper as a depth pick, and it's more just a hope. I am just hoping that the coach speak is kind of right, and that they actually did pay this guy all this money to actually throw him the ball this year. I thought he was going to do well last year, so I'm a little off of Hooper because he kind of burned me bad last year. I thought he was going to have a good year. I thought that was the throws that Baker could make, but he just couldn't find him. So I do have to admit I'm scared. I've had Njoku before, but honestly, with Hooper and Odell and the 2 running backs just blocking it, I just don't see a path to top 5 tight end other than Hooper. And honestly, with Hooper, it's probably going to take the right injury to the right person to free up enough targets for him to do that. But
yeah,
I mean,
he's
going to get targets. So if you need someone there just to fill in a bye week, I wouldn't mind him. But I don't see the upside there. I think you can find better guys with upside.
Yes, sir.
Elliot La Fleur joining the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour tonight. Let's talk about Ferrell's Raiders here, Elliot. Kenyon Drake expected to catch a significant amount of passes based on quotes from the coaches, comments, and tweets from the beat writers. How much stock do you put in to that when you're considering whether or not to draft Josh Jacobs when he's sitting there for you in the 5th round of Footballguys drafts?
Again, that's good. Like I mentioned with the A.J. Dillon, not too much. I like Josh Jacobs because I know that he's the focal point of their offense and that he's going to get carries. And then the only knock on Josh Jacobs is that he needs the game script to work out well, but that just makes it easy to start him and not start him if you have a backup plan or like any extra depth at running back. So I'm not overly worried about Kenyon Drake doing it. Honestly, I'm just hoping Kenyon Drake keeps the Oakland Raiders a little bit more active on the offense this year, so that way some of my teams that do have Waller, do have Jacobs, score more touchdowns. Because I am a little worried that they're going to be below average this year as like in offense in general, but I'm not worried about Drake siphoning off. I honestly just think he's going to be the perfect little gadget player to help get them first downs when they need it. Give Josh Jacobs a break because he can't run 35 times in a game.
A wonderful answer for the Raiders. And, of course, you called them the Oakland Raiders, which is you can do that. Now, what's really dangerous if you start calling them the L.A. Raiders. I heard a guy say that the other day. So you don't want to do that. But
right.
I'm going to stay with running backs. Because I've been playing in Footballguys and main event slow drafts, and I've had a couple partners in some of these drafts, and I have the audacity, apparently, to bring up, hey, why don't we draft Melvin Gordon? And I literally get shouted down. The guys won't really complain, but no Melvin Gordon. And I go, well, maybe I got those numbers wrong. I go look them up. 986 yards last year, 215 carries. Averaged almost a yard better than what he did per carry with the Chargers the previous year. He's still catching passes. The guy has found the end zone either 8, 9, or 10 times for the last 6 years. And I'm curious, in Denver, with the situation at quarterback and how it exists, I'm not sure which one's going to play, but how it currently exists, are you not going to run the ball 400 to 500 times a year? And are you going to put that burden on the rookie running back? And Balky might remind me or remind us because I need to know what the mojo is on this player. But I really want to know what's in your head about this player because Williams goes high and Gordon goes later, and begrudgingly so, it would appear to be.
Yeah, to be honest, I don't understand the hate on Gordon. Especially like now that like one of the trends of the season are teams talking about not taking their brand new running back toy that they just drafted and then giving him 300 carries and running him into the ground, just kind of like Le'Veon Bell and Todd Gurley. I mean, we have a history of teams running their guys into the ground. So the only way I can see Javonte Williams fully taking over is if Gordon really is not playing well and the Broncos are in the hunt for the playoffs. If the Broncos are not in the hunt for the playoffs, I don't understand not let Gordon run out the end of his contract. Why waste that money and why waste your health of your future to win meaningless games at the end of this year? So and if they're doing well, there's a good chance that Gordon was part of the reason. Like they were well functioning.
Yeah.
So I don't understand why it's just instantly has to be Javonte Williams. This is not one of the other teams that drafted running back and it's all them and it's just going to be them from now on. Like they have 1 year left of Gordon. Why not punish the shit out of why not punish Gordon and then let your Javonte Williams just take over next year? Why? I don't see how that would be a good strategy from a organizational standpoint to just hand the keys over when you're already paying a guy $15 million to run the ball. Probably 10
Ferrell,
or 13, but
Our time with Elliott is drawing to a close here, but I do want to ask him. I do want you to ask him that final question right now, though.
Oh, thank you, Balky. Thank you very, very much. There's a player you're going to avoid. I don't know who he is yet because you're going to tell us. And then there's going to be a player that's a deep, deep sleeper. And if you watch some of the early preseason, my sleepers have completely changed after last night. They'll probably completely continue to change. But will you tell us on this warm August evening who your guy you're avoiding and who your favorite sleeper is?
I got two guys I'm avoiding. I'm avoiding the T. Higgins and Jamar Chase. I see all their upside, but I honestly, I'm afraid of Joe Burrow not being back at full, and I'm also afraid of Tyler Boyd soaking up way too many of the targets and way too many of the carries. Again, like I told you about the range progression of wide receivers, I don't like betting on them this early. I have a very clear number one role, and I don't even know who the number one wide receiver is on the Bengals, to be honest. So I'm not touching it because whenever you're looking in that round, probably like four other wide receivers that have a very clear role and have just as good of a quarterback throwing to them this year.
Well, what about
good stuff, Elliott?
What was that?
Yeah. Can you give us a mid-round or a late-round sleeper that you've been grabbing?
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's mostly been Zach Ertz in the late rounds. Zach Ertz, Christian Kirk. I have been liking AJ Green with the news coming out. You never know if he can have a resurgence or not. I don't get hung up on any one person late, though, in drafts because, to me, they're all just lottery tickets. You don't want to just spend all your days dreaming about a lottery ticket. The guys that I like, the guys that I get stuck on are like the nut pieces like Devontae Adams or Aaron, but guys who have done it year after year, and there's no change to their situation.
Elliott, there was a change to your situation last year. You won a bunch of Footballguys league titles, and I want to congratulate you on that. I also wish you nothing but the best of luck in all your Footballguys drafts this year. I know you've expanded your territory, as Ferrell likes to say, and I know you are hoping for even bigger things in 2021. Thank you so much for joining the show tonight. And now, of course, because you're of age, feel free to go sneak into a casino and drag a few pots. Thanks so much for joining the show tonight.
I'll come see you guys at Planet Hollywood. I live right across the street.
There you go. I love it. Elliott, be good, man. We'll talk to you soon, dude.
Great talking to you guys. Thanks for having me on. Have a great night.
Elliott La Fleur, you too, man. Elliott La Fleur, the five-time Footballguys Players Championship winner, joining us on the program tonight. And because it's August and because we love you, why not bring a third guest? But he's not just any guest, ladies and gentlemen. He has 30-plus years fantasy football experience. He operates one of the longest-running fantasy football information websites since 1996. Primary claim to fame, obviously, the SI.com Expert League. 4 consecutive seasons in a row, he was the champ. He's the only winner of that league. He is the CEO and president of Fantasy Football Mastermind Incorporated at FFmastermind.com. You follow him on Twitter at FFmastermind. Please welcome back to the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour, Michael Nazarek. Mike, what's going on tonight, man?
Great to be here, Eric. I'm really excited. Football is back. We're watching TV. We're watching it right now on the TV right now, and I can't believe that these games are actually going to be real here in about a month.
So, and we'll get into to more of FF Mastermind, at the end of the program. But you've been doing this since 1996. You've seen a ton of stuff operating this fantasy football website over the years, and I just want to kind of get into your frame of mind when you're prepping for this. Is this a year-round venture for you? Are you constantly immersing yourself in film and stats or everything like that? Has this become pretty much a more than a full-time job for you?
I guess yes. That's as easy as I can say it. I live, eat, sleep, everything fantasy football. In the middle of March, I can't wait for free agency. February after the Super Bowl, I'm still, arranging things on the site. What are we going to do next? What are we going to add to the site? I mean, it's more than just that. But I've been playing fantasy football since 1988. I mean, the first draft pick was Randall Cunningham, quarterback for the Eagles, and the second pick was Herschel Walker, running back for the Cowboys. So that's how old I am. I don't know if I gave that away.
That's beautiful, Mike. I tell you what, it's going to take a mastermind for me to figure out the Colts backfield. And I want to start with my question tonight about the ADP of Mr. Jonathan Taylor. Is it a real number? Should I be drafting Jonathan Taylor at the end of the first round? Earlier on in the year when you were checking out all the free agency, he was going in the middle of the first. Now it's late in the first. And Balky would have to tell me where he's exactly going now. How far should this guy fall before someone should jump into Jonathan Taylor?
Well, I'm not really that big of a fan of Jonathan Taylor. I know he's a very talented guy, but last year they kind of went with the hot hand. I know he got hot late in the season because they had a really good advantage, a soft schedule per se. But you got Nyheim Hines is still there, and it's more than just catching passes with this guy. He can run up the gut too, and when he has really a lot of success, they just sit Taylor on the sidelines, and I think that's going to continue here and there enough to that he's not a first-round pick in my eyes, especially with Carson Wentz out. We don't know. They're saying now he might be on track for week 1, but then they say, wait a minute, we got to make sure he's 100%. That's kind of a nebulous thing, and that's, I always thought and think that you can't win your draft in the first round, but I think you can lose it. And if you're taking the wrong guy, certainly, you're in trouble. Now, I'm not saying that Jonathan Taylor's not going to have a good season, but is he going to have a top 5 or 6 season or even a top 10 season? I doubt that.
Mike, let's talk about Washington football team here. Is Logan Thomas still a smart ad for fantasy man? And by the way, I before I get into this, I will spill the beans on Jonathan Taylor. Ferrell, he's now at 203 in Footballguys drafts right now as running back 9. Logan Thomas, we were just talking a little bit about him in the chat room when we were on the Zach Ertz discussion before. Logan Thomas is tight end 7 at the 702. Mike, is that a smart ad for fantasy managers considering Curtis Samuel's there, Adam Humphries is there, De'Ami Brown is there? What about Logan Thomas in the 7th?
Yeah, FFPC Pros versus Joes. That's where I took him in the 7th round. I had the 1-8 pick, so I took him at 7-8 as my number 1 tight end, and I loaded up on running backs and wide receivers before round 7, and I like him this year. Beyond Kelsey, there's not really a lock, a solid lock. I know Waller. People think he's up there. Well, I mean, he does have an ankle injury. We just kind of learned that today, and he's missed so many days of practice and all. You got Kittle as kind of injury-prone a little bit there. These are expensive players to be choosing. So if I'm going to choose an elite tight end, it's going to be Kelsey in the first round, or I'm going to wait until later and grab somebody like a Logan Thomas in round 7 or 8.
You can wait till later to get New Orleans Saints wide receivers, and now with another Thomas, Michael Thomas, unavailable for the early part of the season, I've been curious why Tre'Quan Smith hasn't moved somewhat. He doesn't have to move into single digits. He doesn't have to move into being your number 3 fantasy receiver, but I've liked what this guy's done when given the opportunity. He's scored touchdowns. Everybody talks about he's had the opportunity. He's never done it before. And I disagree with that. They don't throw the ball to him much in the red zone, but when they do, he catches it. What's your take on Tre'Quan Smith?
Well, I tell you, the word that comes to mind is inconsistent. That being said, it's not much of a sample size. That's the issue. Mm-hmm. He's certainly going to have opportunity this year. So the question is, when do you take him in your draft? Maybe mid to the latter rounds there. I mean, if he goes in the 8th or 9th round, I don't want any part of him. That's too high. Marquez Callaway's making a name for himself in camp there, and with Michael Thomas out injured too, and also Tre'Quan Smith's been injured in camp, and so he hasn't practiced much. They say Callaway's making all the plays down there, but you got questions: who's going to be the quarterback? Taysom Hill, Jameis Winston. Now they lost their kicker Lutz for a while. I mean, I don't know if this ever since Drew Brees retired. There's things up in the air. It doesn't look good for New Orleans offense, but there's opportunity there for Traquan. I'm just not completely sold on him, but I'm certainly if he lasts late enough in a draft, then I'll take him.
Four-time FFPC main event league champ and owner and proprietor of FFMastermind.com, Mike Nazarek, joining us on the program tonight. The Eagles have Miles Sanders, and he's been slipping a little bit in drafts. I don't necessarily want to touch on him tonight. What about the backup in Philly, Mike? There's Kenneth Gainwell that they drafted this year. They pick up Kerryon Johnson off waivers. And, of course, Boston Scott, who stepped in when Sanders was hurt before, banged up and couldn't play. So who's the backup running back to target for it? And by the way, just so the listeners are aware, I'll throw out the ADPs right now for each one of these guys. Kenneth Gainwell, running back 59 at the 1506. You're looking at Kerryon Johnson not even being selected in Footballguys drafts. And then Boston Scott, running back 61 at the 1605. So Scott and Gainwell, both very close in ADP right now, Mike. Which one is the guy for you if you're drafting a backup Eagles running back?
Probably at this point Boston Scott, because he's been making the most noise in camp. He's early on. He was almost sharing the touches equally with Miles Sanders, and of course Gainwell is not going anywhere. He's the rookie they just took, but there's certainly not a preordained notion that he's going to be the solid backup for Sanders. And I'm kind of worried about Sanders' use in this offense because, he had issues last year, and it looks like they're going to be going more to an RBBC and might be using all three of these guys. But if I was going to take one of these three, it probably would be Boston Scott. He'd probably be the best value, and that would be late.
Boston Scott, the giant killer. All right,
talk about my Giants now.
Yeah, I had to get it in there. I'm sorry. I just couldn't resist. I just love the fact that you it shows that you are a fair-thinking mind for you to pick the giant killer there. And we need an element of fairness here to help Balky with this question, because this is one he's going to struggle with. When you were dealing in March and April with fantasy football and free agency issues and those type of things, Balky was actually winning a championship last year. He won our KFFSC Checkered Flag Championship, and I got a package today in UPS, and it was glorious treasures inside, including Balky's trophy. And he wants to repeat with another trophy because, Balky, your trophy, absolutely beautiful. But I digress. The thing he wants to know is and he's brought this up on several shows because he can't understand which Rams receiver that he should pick, Cooper Kupp or Robert Woods, because they're so packed tightly into their ADP. And you, as the mastermind, I already know what you're going to tell him is that he ought to pick Claypool. But that's not what I want you to tell him what your mind and heart says. But to understand, Balky needs a running buddy for the trophy he's going to pick up down here.
Well, I tell you, early on when I took a look at this first, and I said, all right, Stafford, he's going to get the ball downfield. He's not going to dink and dunk or get across the middle. Woods likes to run those patterns and all. And so my first impression would be Cooper Kupp. But things have kind of changed a little bit. Woods is developing a little bit better connection with Stafford in practice here. It's a shame that I don't think we're going to see Stafford or any of these guys in the preseason. I'd like to see it because it's really exciting and enticing and all. And I've already drafted Matthew Stafford in one early draft as my starter. I waited and took him, but just actually today or last night I moved Woods up above Kupp in the rankings. But like you say, it's almost dead even. And the fact is that the ADP is higher by about a round and a half for Woods right now. So maybe waiting and taking Cooper Kupp a little bit later, and you can get an extra player at a higher position is the better value. But I think both these guys are going to have a better season than last year, especially Cooper Kupp. I mean, 2 years ago he scored 10 times, and last year he only scored 3 times. I think you're going to see him scoring at least 6 times, if not close to 10 this year. It's going to be an exciting offense to watch in L.A.
Mike, couple of questions from the chat room here. Hudson Kern-Reeve, one of the competitors. I don't know if he's in your specific league in Pros vs. Joes, but I know he was one of the entrants this year. He wants to know if the news coming out of Cincinnati camp, obviously not been necessarily glowing about Joe Burrow, has that changed the way that you think about a player like Ja'Marr Chase, obviously the much heralded rookie who was a college teammate of Burrow? Have you moved him down your rankings? Have you changed your mind on what you thought about Chase before or when he was selected by the Bengals to now?
The one word that comes to mind when I think of Ja'Marr Chase, I think of upside. See, Chase is a special talent. He's still a rookie, and there's going to be growing pains when you reach the NFL, and he needs to get a new system down in his head. That said, I believe he has enough time to get it down, and he should produce well, especially with his college quarterback in Burrow there. And as for Burrow, I think it literally all is in his head. He's already said that he's got to get guys around his leg, around his knee, getting feel comfortable with that, and that's exactly what preseason is for. Yes, he struggled a little bit early on, but, it's been a while since he picked up a football and been around a lot of guys charging at him and all. So, fortunately, the season doesn't begin next week. It's another month away. So let's see how things progress in camp. I'm not pushing a panic button and moving him down my rankings right now. I've already drafted him in one Footballguys championship game team, just recently here, and I still feel comfortable with that pick. He might have some growing pains and all, but the bottom line is in the end you need the production, and I think he's going to do it.
Hey, Mike,
more football go ahead.
I do want to just pepper this question in real quick. We got into a Saquon Barkley conversation in the chat room earlier. You're a Giants guy. How nervous would you be about selecting Saquon Barkley in the middle or the end of the first round of drafts this year?
Not going to do it. I love my Giants, and I love Saquon Barkley when he's healthy. But the bottom line is that everything is coming out. I know that's they activated him. He's practicing now, but they won't commit to week 1, and then they said week 3 maybe. Can you afford your RB1 to sit on the sidelines for 2.5, 3 weeks, and then when he starts playing, they might use him in limited fashion? He's just, I want to see it before I go into that, especially, like I said, this is another situation where it depends on how far he slides. Will I consider him as an RB2 late in the second or early in the third? Yes, definitely. But he's sliding in a lot of drafts now, and I can see he's sliding into the second round. I'm not touching him in the first.
Okay, so this is interesting, Mike. I feel like, Ferrell, this will not be our last Saquon Barkley discussion we will have on this program over the next few weeks, too. But, okay, let's get into some, wide scope it a little bit. I know you've drafted some best ball and some best ball slim teams this year, Mike. How does your preferred sort of end-of-draft roster construction vary between those two formats? Obviously, traditional best ball, 28 rounds with kickers and defenses. The slims, just that, like we saw with you in Pros versus Joes, 18 rounds, no kickers and defenses. So obviously, the kickers and defenses will differ. But what about the rest of the positions in those drafts? Or do you not have any sort of finite set number at each position that you want to have?
Well, I really like the slim format, 18 rounds, and I normally go 3-3-6-6. 3 quarterbacks, 3 tight ends, 6 running backs, and 6 wide receivers. And when you get down near the end, you like to grab guys that may be on teams, they're starters still, but they're on teams that, people don't know what's going on with the offense. Maybe they're new for that team, specifically guys like Tyrell Williams, Marvin Jones, those kind of guys, and they can pop. And they can have those big games. There will be games where they don't do anything, but that's what best ball is all about, right? You want to kind of cover yourself there. Those are the types of guys. And I'll even consider guys like, if you're going to just go best ball as opposed to, regular league, then Deshaun Jackson's like the ultimate best ball guy because you don't know if he's going to, pop for 2 games and then get hurt and miss the rest of the year. Well, take 30 points in 2 weeks or, 40 points in 2 weeks. That helps the team. So you're looking more guys like Amon St. Brown for Detroit on regular teams that you're managing. He's a rookie, he's going to come in. He's going to play the slot, maybe see a lot of catches there. Those guys I think will be a little bit more stable than the other guys. But it's very subtle, and you just like the previous guy on here said, there are lottery tickets. Once you get late in the draft, you start. And if you do enough of these drafts, you don't want to get the same guys on all the teams. So you just start in, okay, I'm going to do this guy and this guy here. How about this guy and this guy over here? So you kind of spread the field and see who pops in, and hopefully you get lucky with one or two of them, and and then it all comes up roses, hopefully.
Mike, when you know coming into the season that we are not going to have a 16-game NFL season this year, we're going to have a 17-game season, has that affected the way that you draft at all? Still the single bye, obviously, for each team, but has that affected the way that you've drafted in the FFPC, knowing that there's the NFL teams are playing one more game this year?
Directly, probably not, because I just view that as an extra week. I know we're doing the all play and the top 6 points in week 6 in the FFPC main event, get a win and all, and that's just like an extra week because it's a good thing. Because if your team starts out 1-4, basically you're out of it, but at least you have one extra week there to try and make up ground. At that point, you're hoping going for total points. But the biggest thing this year has been the buys. The fact that you got teams like Carolina and Green Bay, Tennessee, Christian McCaffrey, Derrick Henry, Aaron Rodgers, Devontae Adams, all off of week 13. That's the playoffs in the FFPC. So you have to weigh that as to how many of those players you want on your team. Fortunately, you're old elite studs, so you're not going to have more than one of them unless you're in a dynasty format. And actually, that happens to me too. I've got a FFPC Pros versus Joe's dynasty team where I've got both McCaffrey and Henry, and they're going to be off week 13. Fortunately, in that league, that's not the playoffs. So, but really it's the bye weeks that more concern me rather than the extra week. I think we're going to be fine there. Obviously the players are going to be upset. They got to play an extra week and all, but it's just it's more excitement for the rest of us.
Let's get to a couple of emails here. Oh, go ahead, Ferrell.
Oh, no, I'll hold off mine because I think the listener emails, I'll get my standard question in, Balky, and I'm really excited about what Mike's got to say, but let's go to those emails.
Yeah, absolutely. And we'll go to Mike in, actually a different Mike, this one in Midfield Term, Pennsylvania. He writes, how do you feel about Elijah Moore from a redraft perspective this season? Thanks, Mastermind. That is Mike in Midfield Term, PA. So we saw the injury scare, but it sounds like the Jets are saying it's nothing serious and he's not going to miss a ton of time. But he had been wowing a lot of people in training camp, a lot of the beat writers talking about all the plays he's been making. But he is a rookie, Mike, so help us unwrap this riddle of Elijah Moore and his 2021 prospects.
Well, you want, as a Giants fan, I'm originally from New York, so I am kind of a Jet fan too. Unfortunately, the Jets are the Jets, and they can't seem to get out of or their own way. But this is a talented kid, and much like last year, we didn't know what they were going to do with Denzel Mims, and then he got injured, and and it just kind of fell apart. And then this year, he got sick in the off season, lost 20 pounds, and now he's on the backup team, and they might end up trading him or cutting him. But Elijah Moore, before he got hurt, was basically on track to start for this team. And the issue here is that you got Zach Wilson, you got another rookie quarterback, so there's going to be growing pains there. It's not a solid lock, like say Trevor Lawrence. Basically the Jets saw and they liked what they saw, and he flashed. When he worked out and everything, and we're just kind of crossing our fingers here. I think you got to take more of a long-term approach with Elijah Moore, especially if he is the quad injury and all. If he's going to be healthy by week 1, but I wouldn't expect too much to begin with. This is the type of guy that you draft in the middle to late rounds of your draft as late as you can, and stack him and wait and see what happens. I'm not going to start him in week 1. I want to see what he's going to do. We don't know what the Jet offense is going to do. It can't be much worse than it was last year. But there's excitement in New York, and they should, because they got a lot of talented young guys, but they are young and they're rookies, and there's a lot of growing pains there. And, it's just going to be interesting to see what Elijah can do.
There's another situation. There's another situation where we don't know what's going to happen. And it's not necessarily because the talent is young there. It's because we don't really know what the depth chart's going to look like in New Orleans. And that's sort of Chris and Raleigh's question here, Mike. He says, I saw a report today that Taysom Hill could start week 1. Does that and the Michael Thomas thing change the way you guys are drafting Saints? So now we sort of got into this with the Tre'Quan Smith question for you, Mike, but knowing the quarterback situation, knowing that Michael Thomas is going to be out for a while, how does that affect what you're doing with Alvin Kamara? How does that affect what you're doing with Marquez Callaway? Quite frankly, how does it affect what you're doing with Adam Troutman?
Adam Troutman hasn't done anything yet. He's got a lot of potential, so he's a late-round sleeper. And if you're going to grab him in round 13 or whatever, good luck. I'm not even sniffing that. Okay, you're right. We don't know who's going to start. Taysom Hill, Jameis Winston. And so, yeah, if you give me the choice between Kamara and now Dalvin Cook as the number 2 behind CMC, I'm going to take Cook. In fact, I'll probably take Henry over Kamara. Okay, simply because I owned Kamara last year in the Pros versus Joes, and I saw when Taysom Hill came in there, and there was a couple of games there where Alvin didn't even have 10 points in PPR. They weren't throwing to him. Then they started throwing to him later, and of course Brees came back and he was okay. But there's a lot of variables here, and I mean that's kind of scary. And like I said, that's another reason to maybe avoid Alvin Kamara that early in your draft. Now, if you're like sitting at 9 or 10 and he slips that late, he was there. I'd still feel a little bit concerned, a little bit about it, but like I said, there's everything can't go through Alvin Kamara there. I mean, I know he's talented and all, but talented teams that they play will stack the box against him. I know he's going to catch passes and everything, but wow, I mean, if they don't have any guys that really step up and catch the passes in the passing game, then it could get a little bit ugly. I mean, I remember Saquon Barkley was his rookie year there. I mean, a game against the Cowboys, right? 13 catches for like 20 yards or something. It was crazy. I mean, it's going to be interesting to see what happens in New Orleans. And I mean, Drew Brees like, maybe it's a good thing that I retired. I don't know.
So, Mike, let me ask you this: in regards to the Hill versus Winston thing, does your analysis or your projection of Kamara change if, let's say, Sean Payton announces Winston as the starting quarterback prior to FFPC main event drafts?
Well, I got him pretty high right now, so that would probably keep him where he is. If Taysom Hill's announced and I don't think Sean Payton's going to do this because he's never given anything, anyone to anything. Right. So I don't think we're going to know. But if you were to say that Taysom Hill is going to start, then yeah, I'd probably lower him. Probably to a later round, first round pick. I mean, I just don't think it's going to happen though. I think they're going to hold their cards straight to very close to the vest, and they don't want anyone to know what they're doing. And even if Winston is the starter, you can bet they're going to have packages for Hill to come in, and it's going to be more than just a couple of plays here and there like they did for Brees. It's going to be more. So it's going to be interesting. like I said, they've got their hands full. It's not Drew Brees anymore. You got a totally different game there, and you got a very good strong arm quarterback, but one that almost like Fitzpatrick can make really bad mistakes, but he's also very good. He's a little bit older now. So, and then Taysom Hill, we saw a little bit of taste of him last year. It was mostly good, but a lot of it was him running around and running in touchdowns at the goal. And I don't think they can do that sustained to keep him. So, it's going to be interesting to see what happens here, this season with the quarterback situation in New Orleans.
Ferrell, I am fresh out of email, so it is time for you to unholster that verbal pistol and fire that final question right at Mr. Nazarek.
Well, and I think we're going to have sleepers that are presented to us, Balky, with infectious enthusiasm. A lot of our, we've had a commentary that the late round guys are lottery tickets, but I want to find that pick that is that sleeper that's going to do something for you. It's going to be on your roster the entire year, that you're going to wait for him to fulfill some point scoring in this 17-game season. And then you've given us some guys, very great commentary on Kamara and Barkley. You've given us some guys early that you'll eventually take. I want to give you a guy that you just might not take no matter how far he falls. So those are my two questions.
Well, I was kind of pitched a similar question like this, and my answer really was Saquon Barkley early in the draft. Well, I'm not going to take him, but I guess to just switch it up and go at another position is I really think that Patrick Mahomes is being drafted too early in a lot of these drafts. I like anyone that's seen my site. You can get a screenshot of my PDF cheat sheets from back in May, and you can see a different name up top, Josh Allen. And so I don't think Patrick Mahomes is going to find his way on any of my teams. Not that I don't like him. I just think he's going too soon, and I think even 4th or 5th round is too soon for him. So that's your answer there if you want an interesting answer.
That is.
Yeah, absolutely. Listen, Mike, FFMastermind.com, it's going strong, obviously. You are almost, 3 decades of experience into this website. There's a lot of great content on here and a lot of great reasons to subscribe to FFMastermind.com. Number one question for you on this: why should people subscribe? What do you have going on there right now? What do you have coming up that people will want to read? And number two, Chris Rito and you dropped the running back preview podcast. When is the wide receiver one coming out?
That podcast is coming out next Tuesday. So we do, and the one thing I like about our podcast is it's 30 minutes. So it always runs long. We always go 35, 40 minutes or whatever. But, I don't think anyone wants to hear me talk for an hour. So maybe Chris, because he's really researched a lot. He's very statistical in his analysis and all. And so I think we work well together. But it's a 30-minute show. We've already done the quarterbacks and running backs. So each Tuesday it's going to be wide receivers next week and then tight ends. And then I think we do a sleeper creeper show before. And then we go into week one's newsletter. Have a lot of fun on the show on Blog Talk Radio, of course, and really looking forward to that. What we're going on with the guy, I mean, right now, of course, my preseason draft guide. I've been doing guides now for 26 years. We got like more than 20 articles in it. I mean, we just dropped like a 50-page article on offensive line analysis. Senior writer John Cooney is really good in this area. So people want to know, well, who's got the best, blockers and stuff for the runners and all. And we actually skipped this about 5 years ago, and I got caught hell for it. So I said, okay, it's always going to be in the guide. But we got perfect drafts coming up. We do the PPR, non-PPR, 10 and 12, 14. We might get to 14 this year. It just depends on how busy I am, as well as John Cooney and the rest of the staff here. We're updating our rookie rankings here after the next preseason game. We'll see there. It's a lot of good stuff. We also have our executive draft master, which is drafting software to help you draft, and that's at a bargain for just $15 in itself. But if you buy it for the package, it's only an extra $10. I've been doing weekly newsletters, drafting software, and a draft guide for 26 years. I really think that our site. I make my living from the site, so I guess I'm doing some things right. I guess, but everything available. I think we have everything available and needed for whether you're experienced or whether you're a newbies. And I take my job very seriously. This is what I do for a living full time. And premium subscribers can email me questions at any time. They can hit me up on Twitter or whatnot. I'll help them out. And I said this last summer, and I guess I'm going to say it again right here because I want to hear it for the people that took the year off from COVID because of COVID and everything. I guess you could say that some may consider me the Alexa of fantasy football. I may not get everything perfectly right, but generally I always have an answer that's going to help you move towards the right path towards winning. And that's all you can do. I'm here to help offer an experienced opinion. Certainly not God, but I'm here to help people. And, I'm still doing it 26 years later, so I guess I'm doing something right.
Mike Nazarek, he's not God, but he's close. And if you want to get on that first step on that path to winning, it begins by punching up ffmastermind.com in your browser. Check that out right there. You follow Mike on Twitter at ffmastermind. Mike, good luck in the main event this year. I know that you're going to be adding to that total. Good luck in pros versus Joes. You've had a lot of success in that format, so I fully expect to see you at the top of the leaderboard throughout the season there. Thanks so much for coming on, man. We really appreciate it, and we'll see you out in Vegas shortly.
Yeah, listen, guys, before we go, I always offer this whenever I come on the site because I want people, whether you're playing in the FFPC or just playing high-stakes events or other leagues, that I want people to try out the site. So we're offering a special $12 discount code for our Super Bowl package, which is everything. Normally it's $59.95, $60. This will get you $12 off. The code is FFPC12, so it's just FFPC12. And that'll bring your cost down to $47.95. That's under $50. Gets you everything on the site for 2021 to try us out. And we're here to help.
We are here to help. And, Mike, listen, I appreciate that for the listeners. And I'll be following all the content, be following you throughout the season. And we'll talk again soon, dude. This was a treat. Thanks so much.
Absolutely.
Thanks,
good luck,
Mike.
guys. Take care.
Michael Nazarek, ladies and gentlemen, at FF Mastermind on Twitter, ffmastermind.com. Good stuff from him. Ferrell, that is going to do it for our show. I know we went a little bit over tonight, but man, 3 guests. We had to go a little bit over tonight. For anybody who is interested, and you all should be, KFFSC.com, filling up those online main events. Next one going off 9 p.m. on Monday. Don't wait for Saturday and Sunday. Get registered for it now. It'll be the best part of your Monday. Ferrell, thanks so much, dude. We will talk to you again for our KFFSC preview episode next week, man.
Thank you, Balky. We'll see you then.
Ferrell Elliott, ladies and gentlemen, the commissioner of the Kentucky Fantasy Football State Championship. You follow him on Twitter at jferrellelliott, and, of course, at KFFSC, KFFSC.com. I want to thank Greg Sidoris, Elliot La Fleur, Mike Nazarek, Ferrell Elliott, the FFPC, Rob Bryce, and, of course, each and every one of you. Like I said, it's another huge show, ladies and gentlemen, next week. Friday night, 10/9 Central. It is our annual KFFSC preview episode. I have secured the 2020 KFFSC main event champs, Frying Pan Inc. Yeah, that's right. Brad Petrie, Darren Larson, they're going to be on this podcast next week, but that's not all. From Pay Dirt and the Athletics fantasy football coverage, the football scientist himself, Casey Joyner, will be swinging by on the HSFF Hour next week, too. So another show next week where we have 3 guests. It's going to be a lot. And quite frankly, you need a lot this time of year. Fantasy football is the drafting is hot and heavy as it's been all year. We want to bring you the content. We're going to get 3 really intelligent guys. Well, 4 really intelligent guys next week, including Ferrell. And then, of course, me on the program you're going to have to put up with. Remember to register for that inaugural best ball tournament today before it fills up. Get in on the Dynasty starters, the Footballguys Players Championship, too. We're trying to fill this midnight draft coming up. We got about 40 minutes to go. Only 3 people. No, beg your pardon. There's 4 people in it now. So only 8 to go. I think that's going to happen. Be the hero. Jump in now. MyFFPC.com. $400 off each additional main event team on your account today. Remember, register for those Planet Hollywood rooms now before the prices go up. Join the KFFSC main event. Your weekend officially starts now.
This has been another episode of the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour, presented by MyFFPC.com. It was broadcast live and heard around the world. Balky and Ferrell will be back next week with more analysis, interviews, and advice from guests much smarter than they are. Thanks for listening, and we'll talk with you again next week.
Hey, by the way, ladies and gentlemen, before I sign out of the chat room tonight, I think it was, and I have to go back and look here. Everybody keeps talking. I can't see who originally said that. They were asking about the Ascendant, which we had always done on the annual Live at the KFFSC episode, but we have not done it the last few years because it's been difficult trying to get a good handle on the Ascendant. Now, what has been easier to get a handle on has been the Hype Guy, which we've done the last few years, and that's what we will be doing again. Now, we won't do it next week. Kevin Williamson, by the way, Bourbon City Ballers, asking about the Ascendant. We will not reveal the Ascendant next week. We will reveal the Hype Guy live at the KFFSC. That is not this Friday, but the following Friday. That's when that's going to happen. And final reminder, make sure you're getting in the FFPC main event by Monday at midnight Pacific so you can get your early draft slot on Wednesday. And make sure you're clicking on that link on the FFPC main event page or giving Greg Sidoris a call to make sure you're securing that fantastic room rate before August 24th when it skyrockets. 216-299-5390 is Greg's number. Casino Connection USA at gmail.com is where to reach him. Getting ready for that midnight draft. Can't wait to see you in it. Thanks for listening, everybody. We'll talk to you again next week with Petrie, Larson, and Joyner.